All right. So, as I like to say with these things, as long as everything is working the way that it should be working, we are now live. So, hello and welcome to everyone who is watching the Written in Melanin channel. Wherever this day may have found you, I'm so glad that you are here. My name is Chelsea, and I write books about Black girls who aren't all that nice. And forgive me, you guys, because I am using a new streaming software, so it is a little all over the place and I'm still getting used to it. But that being said, hello, welcome to everyone who is already in the chat. I hope you guys are doing amazing, magnificent, wonderful. Shout out to everyone who is here. J Monet, Ben, Oversimplified Productions, welcome. Deja, Read Love Listen, Vina is here. Hello, hello, Star Dancer Supreme. Good Lord. Yes. Welcome. I hope you guys are doing great. And yes, we are running on CP time today because what had happened was I was actually not going to do the Melanin Chat today. Mostly because Audra is, well, not mostly, partly because Audra is not available. And also partly because I've been tired, like on a spiritual level, And I was just like, you know what? I am going to rest today, but I actually ended up getting a lot of sleep last night. So I was like, you know what? We're going to do the chat. We're going to show up, and there are things to discuss, conversations to be had. So here we are. But I also have, like I said, I have a new streaming software, so I'm trying to figure that out. Mostly because the other one that I had kept crashing my computer, and I was just like, yeah. So, Audra is great. She's wonderful. She's magnificent. She just, I don't know. I think we've talked about it on the chat, but she has started, thank you. She has started a new business, called R5 Hauling. So if you're up that way, she does like junk hauling and stuff. Like, she has her own business, and it's just been picking up a lot of traffic recently. So she's had a lot more work, which is great. Wonderful. Love that, because we want her to be successful, but also it just means that she's busier. So that is where we're at. But that being said, you guys, we're still doing this. So slight plug. If you haven't already, go ahead and like this video, because y'all are already here. Y'all are already locked into this conversation. So just throw that out there. But before we get into the conversation for today, y'all know that I have a melanin spotlight for you. So hopefully this works. Oh, it did what it was supposed to do. So the Melanin Spotlight for today is Along for the Ride by Mimi Grace. This book came out in 2019. It is a cute romance. I've heard a lot of positive things about Mimi Grace. So she has multiple books out. This is just one of them. So the description for the book reads, This road to love may have a few speed bumps. Former hot mess Jolene Baxter is committed to doing better. It's why she offered to help her sister and brother-in-law move across the country. However, her goodwill is tested when last-minute changes, mainly her father ditching her for an all-expenses-paid vacation, forces her to make the journey with a man who is the human version of a pebble in her shoe. Jason Akana operates on lists and bitter coffee, but none of those things will help him on a 16-hour trip with the most infuriating woman. Maybe they can get along and forget their heated confrontation 5 years ago at his best friend's wedding, when pigs fly. But the addition of vehicle problems, an unplanned pit stop in a small town, and chemistry that inconveniently tags along shifts their perspectives. And once the dust settles after their trip, a tentative friendship emerges. Will these two stubborn people successfully navigate the unexpected feelings that follow close behind, or will they hit a roadblock before reaching happily ever after? This novel is a standalone, and just so you know, it does contain deceased parent and workplace harassment, so something to keep in mind. So, like I said, it's supposed to be cute, it's supposed to be fun. Like I said, I heard good things about Mimi Grace, and you guys know that if you're interested, there is a link in the description box below. If you were here before we went live, you probably need to refresh the page so that the link shows up, but it's there, I promise. I promise. So, all that being what it is, let's have this discussion, you guys. There we go. Okay. Couple of things. Let's see here. Relive Listen said, I feel you on being tired. Just hosted family for a while and went hiking exhausted. Yeah. honestly, you guys, it's just one of those things where it's just like when you're alive and you're adulting and you're trying to be like a responsible adult, you just get to a point where you're just like, bro, I just want to nap. I just really want to nap. And in case you guys didn't know, I also launched the Melanin Library YouTube channel. There's also a link down description box so that you can subscribe to it. It's also featured on my channel. And the work for that has just been a lot. And also trying to be more consistent with YouTube and writing and all the things. So yeah, it's been a lot. It's been a lot. Let's see here. Deja said she enjoyed along for the ride. So also, there you go. Someone signing off on it. And also, good morning, Deja. I hope you're doing well. Let's see here. DeRussell. Oh, both of you guys are named Deja. That's cool. Wait, Deja. I'm saying it wrong. Deja, not Deja. Deja. My bad. But yeah, did you know that you're not nominated on the Indie Literary Award? I don't know how I stumbled across it, but I saw it and voted for you. I'll put a link in the Discord. Thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, before we get into this, I guess I should mention that my book, my series, the Wrath of the Gods series, back here, this one with We Are the Origin and We Are Dying Gods is nominated for the Indie Literary Award. So Deja just dropped the link for that for me. So I will put that somewhere. Yeah. Y'all know I can't do two things at one time. So my bad. So I will go ahead and drop that in the description box as well. So if you guys want to go in and like vote for me, that would be great. If you don't, y'all know I'm also in the same category as Tatiana and I love her as well. So like if you don't vote for me, vote for Tatiana or Neeks because they're homies. Let's see here. Indie Lit Awards. All right. If you refresh the page, the link is now down there in the description box as well. So get into it. But yeah, there we go. Okay, that being said, you guys, if you guys are part of the Discord server, right, which if you want to join, sign up for the Patreon. $3 gets you in, $5 gets you into the after chat. Great. We know this. Fantastic. There's a link in the description box. But if you guys have been hanging out in the Discord server, we have had this conversation and it has also been, I guess, going around because, again, relevant links down at the very bottom of the description box. Jessie Owens did one for the book community that she does on her page. And apparently, there is this idea going around that books, like, I don't know, the book community as a whole is responsible for what children read. And I have found this conversation to be extremely interesting. Because again, if you guys are in the Discord server, we've talked about this, but I feel like this needs to be a conversation had in a public setting because I would also like to know how y'all feel about this. Mostly that there's this idea going around, especially with a lot more illustrated covers, right? That these books are being marketed and targeted towards children who are picking up these books with, we'll say, inappropriate matter, right? And they have things that, realistically 13, 14-year-olds should probably definitely not be reading, right? And so the conversation is these books should not have illustrated covers. And then it kind of gets into the whole discussion of whether or not these books are that way so that people can read them in public in peace. And that brings up a whole other conversation of what these covers should look like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have heard about this, right, for sure, weigh in the comments. Let me know your opinion and what you guys think about it. But for me, I have been really giving it some thought, right? Because I have a nephew. He's still really small, so he's not at the point of like going and picking up books or anything like that. But as a former teacher and someone who possibly may raise children one day, it's just like, is this really a problem? I don't know, because here's the thing. I don't know if it's the Libra in me, but I'm like, I see both sides of this, right? And part of it for me is just like, as an adult, I'm like, okay, these books are for adults. Like, adults are allowed to have cute covers. And as an indie author, I also have illustrated covers. So I'm like, I really don't see the issue being with the illustration. I don't see the issue being with oh, like this looks like it's for a younger audience, because let's be real, crossover does exist. And when we start talking about, book covers and things like that, there is a certain level of there are adults who look in the YA section, and we can't pretend like that's not a real thing, right? Adults going to YA. But left or right, it's just kind of like, part of me is like, I don't know. I don't see what the problem is. I don't see what the problem is, because in my mind, I'm like, that is the responsibility of the parent to know what their child is reading and getting into. Like, I don't understand how that is anyone else's problem. If your kid picks up a book and brings it to you and it's like, hey, ma, hey, daddy, hey, whoever, hello, parent, adult in charge, I would like you to buy me this thing. Is it not your responsibility and due diligence as a parent to just, I don't know, simply read the back of the book and see what it's about and see if it's appropriate for the child who is requesting it? I don't know. I feel like that's your responsibility as a parent, you know? But then I also, on the flip side of that, understand that, as having been a teacher, having interacted with parents on different levels with different levels of involvement in their kids' life, there's also a level of parents who just go with whatever it is that's going to keep their kid quiet and occupied. And it's just like, hey, if your kid's reading books and they're quiet and they're out the way and they're reading, a lot of parents aren't going to say no, regardless of what the content is. It's kind of like how a lot of parents let their kids who are like 6 and 7 play like Call of Duty. And it's just like, you probably definitely should not be playing Call of Duty, but here we are. This is the world we live in. This is America, right? But I don't know, but that's a choice that I feel like that's a choice that you have to make as a parent. But it's also like, you probably don't know, especially if you are not a reader. If you are not involved in these conversations, you may not know what your kid is asking you for. You may not know what your kid is picking up. So I don't know. But on the flip side of that, right? I was thinking about it this morning, right? And I meant to call my mom and ask her how she used to pick out books for me, because I vividly remember reading things that I probably should not have been reading. But also, my mom was a reader, so she had her own books and they were just in the house. So after a certain age, it's like I was just reading her books and it wasn't a big deal. She also read my books. Like, that's how she got into Harry Potter. She bought it for me. So like, I don't know. Let me read some of these comments before I get too lost in the sauce. But with the type of books being banned in the community, if the community can't give it to them, the schools never can or will. But you're right, we haven't drawn a line on what's good or bad. Yeah. Jay Monet said, I don't know how you can look at these covers and assume they are for kids. The illustrations aren't the problem. They really aren't. Even the book in question, I was just kind of like, I don't know if this is actually a problem, because like, also, what does the back of the book read as? Because I don't know, if your 13-year-old is coming up to you and you look at the back of the book and it tells you that specifically that it's a romance between two adults, why would you then continue to buy the book? And then also, I saw in Jesse Owens' in her video, she brought up a really good point of, you could, like, when you're buying these books, you could really just go to the cashier and ask if the book is appropriate, and they can literally look in their system and tell you if it's for adults or children or who it's for. And if your 13-year-old is picking up an adult book, you can just say no. Like, that is a thing. That is a thing, But yeah, let's see here. Vina said they do need to stop slapping cutesy covers on smutty books, even for adults. It's just weird because you go in expecting one thing and get something else. Plus, on the romance side, it plays into purity culture, like people wanting sexy books but don't want to see sexy images on them. That is a whole other conversation. So remind me to touch back on that, because I do have very strong opinions about that as well. But even without people on the cover, people have an issue with it. Is it appropriate for kids? Sarah J Maas covers don't have illustrated people, but you can't say it's for kids or not based on the cover. That's true. I feel like marketing when it comes to book covers is a whole conversation, because again, along for the ride, I don't know if that has, on page smut or not. However, it is an illustrated cover and it is cute, and I don't think that it's misleading. I really think it's more so about the idea of, how do I put it? I don't want to say what's appropriate, because I feel like the line between what's appropriate and not is a very weird thing to even talk about when it comes to books as an adult, because like there was definitely an era of like a half naked women and men on book covers, and personally I found nothing wrong with that. Like, you know what you're getting into. There's no shame in it, right? And I don't know. I think it's exceptionally weird, right? That it has to even be this discussion of, is this book for kids? And then also the marketing of it, because I feel like the covers aren't the issue when it comes to marketing. I feel like it's how authors and publicists and the people who market books in general are pushing books towards an audience where it is very clearly not meant for this audience. It's intentional misleading when it comes to how the book is marketed as a whole. And I think the cover is just one part of that, but I don't think that the illustration on the cover is inherently the issue, right? Read, Love, Listen said, the back of the book or the title helps folks understand. Sick of the illustrated books being blamed, but not the parents. And I feel like there's a lot of accountability that can be held on both parts, because here's the thing. Here's what I was thinking, right? Because over the weekend, Ben and I went to a bookstore and we picked up 2 books. One of them was a manga and the other one was, it was a novel, but it was translated from Chinese. So I don't even know if you would call it a manga or a light novel. I think it's just like a novel. It's just like a translated novel. I don't know. I can't help you. Point is, it has an illustrated cover. It very much reminded me of like, if you watch anime, you'll get this. If you don't, sorry. But it very much reminded me of the cover for like Heaven's Official Blessing or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. And I picked it up on a whim, right? But the thing about these 2 things is one is Japanese, one is Chinese, right? But both of them had little markers on the back to tell you, oh, this is who this is for. Like, ooh, I got my manga, right? This is Sweat and Soap. Obviously, this is an adult romance, right? You can tell that from the cover. But on the back of it, if you look very closely, trying to hold this up appropriately, it tells you that who is the audience is for. It's for ages 16 and up. They tell you that. And I'm like, that would probably actually be helpful for parents so that they can take a glance at it and look. And they obviously already do this in other markets, right? So it brings up the conversation of, is it actually technically a bad thing to put labels and warnings and things on books? Like, this is rated M for mature. This is rated for 16 and up, 17 and up, or whatever. Part of me is like, no, that makes sense. But then I realized, you guys, that the problem is we live in America. There's such purity culture and such, this can't be included in books, that there are so many marginalized communities that would get higher ratings, and it would just feed into this idea that anything that is different, anything that is not cisgender, heterosexual, and white is going to have a higher rating. And those books and that's going to be weaponized against books to ban them and keep them from going into libraries, from going into schools. It would be a whole problem. It would be an issue. And it's just kind of like, but that has nothing to do with whether or not it's actually a good idea or not. It has everything to do with the inherent racism that America is built on and has not been addressed in so many different ways. Because, Read, Love, Listen pointed out, they do this for TV, they do this for movies, they do it for music. Like, they will tell you, like, their albums, that there are almost 2 versions of every album. That's like the regular version, and then you have the explicit version, and then the explicit version usually has a different cover art, and it usually has something like parental advisory or whatever. I don't know what it actually says, because I never really pay attention to it, because by the time you're old enough to request your own music, at least in the early 2000s, right? That's when I came of age. CDs were a thing, right? Like, by the time you were old enough to request your own music like that, the parental advisory really wasn't that bad. It just, whatever, that's a whole other conversation. And I also think it depends on the kid, and which is why I'm like, I feel like inherently this is a parental problem, because it depends on if your kid's mature, because some kids are more mature for their age, and I'm talking about, oh, they had to grow up faster, but like literally some kids just process information differently. It's a very individual thing, and it's just like, if you're cool with your 14-year-old reading adult romance because it doesn't bother you, okay, cool. But there are absolutely some 14-year-olds out there who should not be reading adult romances. But I also feel like that brings up the question of, if you have a 14-year-old who really enjoys reading and has already mentally aged out of a lot of the things in the young adult genre, how many kids are actually in that demographic who don't already read books? Like, I don't see it unless you are trying to get a kid to read, right? I feel like they would have naturally, if they're already a reader, I feel like they would have naturally already mentally moved on from a lot of things, because you grow from experiencing things, and the purpose of books is to experience different things, right? I don't know. I feel like that's a conversation too. I feel like that's a conversation for, is this for, parents who have kids who are readers, or parents who are trying to force their kids to become readers because reading is good for you. And, I don't know, do they still do dear days in school where you have to drop everything and read? I don't know. Is that a thing? I don't know. I feel like there's so much nuance to this conversation, I'll say. Let's see here. Going back to the comments, because y'all know I cannot do two things at one time. Let's see here. I will say the synopsis doesn't always tell you, either because there's so many YA books coming out right now where they put these teens in adult situations in spaces. Vina, I love how you bring up all of these points, and they are really whole conversations. Whole conversations that need to be had, because I feel like a lot of this issue comes from the reality that there is a generation of women, of specifically hot women, who never aged out of young adults. They never transitioned from reading young adult to adults. And because they have not left that genre, that age range rather, they are literally demanding content for this age range that already exists in adult, but they're demanding it in young adult because that's what they want to read. But they also don't want to read about immaturity. They don't want to read about, characters who don't have responsibilities. They don't want to read about essentially children. They don't want to read about children. They just want to, I don't know, they want older teens, specifically, like Vina said, in adult situations and spaces, navigating like adults, but they also don't want them, I don't know, they don't want them to be in their 20s. They don't want them to be in their 30s. And that's, honestly, I feel like that should be addressed. And I don't know. I mean, I know why the industry is catering to it, because adults are the ones who actually buy books. You market to teens, but eventually it's generally speaking an adult who actually has to buy the book. And if most of the adults are like, I want this, you're going to give it to them because they're the market and you go where the money is. I understand it. But at the same time, I think it's weird that people are like, think of the children. What about the children? It's like, you don't really care about the children, because this is not an inherently difficult problem to solve. Stop writing books for adults who are in the wrong age range. Like, that's really the solution to the problem. If you are looking for smut in your book, you need to be in the adult section. Period. Like, you just need to be in the adult section, and you need 2 adults in the book. I mean, I don't understand why that's weird. I don't understand why that's weird. But yeah. Let's see here. We rate video games and movies, so we should be able to rate books, but the potential for discrimination increases. And it's that. Because people, I mean, they already have so many issues with with books that have Black characters or queer characters or disabled characters, or just simply, like I said, non-heterosexual cisgender white people, right? If it does not have that, then it is deviant, essentially. And they're like, no, we don't want our children reading that. And it's just like, why? Why does that upset you so bad, right? But that requires addressing a larger problem that people don't want to actually dig into, because the minute you say that, like, oh, that's racist, that's racism at play, people are like, no, it's not, and then they go into defending this symptom of a much larger issue. And it's just like, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of people who lack the ability to think critically, I'll say, who are making decisions and talking very loudly, who should probably just, had it been Ben Franklin say, he said, it is better to be silent and thought a fool rather than to open your mouth and prove yourself one. I don't know. I feel like there are some people who should probably start thinking about that and what it means and whether or not they should be talking very loudly, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Let's see here. Part of the problem is definitely many people being irresponsible in how they talk about books. So many people misrepresent stories on social media, which confuses younger readers. They don't actually know what they're getting into with new to them books. Okay, so I have an unpopular opinion. Maybe it's a controversial opinion, but I'm going to state it anyway because this is how I feel. This is what I really think. I really think that books that are marketed towards children should be marketed towards children, and it should not be an adult who is marketing it to them, right? Social media exists for all age ranges. So I don't understand why you would send a middle grade book to an adult book reviewer to then market it to children. To me, that is weird. It is kind of like, okay, if you want to market a middle grade book, why not send it to a middle grade reader who then is going to share it with their middle grade friends? Why not send it to librarians and ask them to introduce it to teachers and who teach the middle grades, middle school, if you will. I don't understand why this idea of marketing is weird, because it's just like, they're absolutely kid and teenage influencers, and there have always been the cool kids. There have always been the kids who set the trends. There have always been someone who stands at the height of the social hierarchy. Why are you picking this 30-year-old woman to market this young adult book to teenagers? That is weird. That is weird. It's honestly, in my mind, I'm like, this is really not a difficult problem to solve. The problem is that the people in charge are not actually trying to solve the problem. And that's kind of what it boils down to, because Oversimplified said it's low-key ageism, and maybe I'm tripping, and it's not. You're not tripping. It is exactly that. It is exactly that. Because there's this idea that there are some people who are like, they love 16, right? 16 is the best age. Sweet 16. That's when you're really a teenager. You're the heart of being a teenager, right? 16, 17, 18. Those are peak years. But then you hit 18, you become an adult, right? 18, 19, also cool because now you have a little bit of freedom. 20s are great because you're allowed to be reckless. How many books do you know about people actually being interesting past 25? It's just kind of like this idea that you have to have your entire life shaped, fixed, ready to go at the peak of your lifehood by like 22 tops. And that's only because you can drink. So it's this idea that everything past, I'll say 22 really, is all downhill from there. And books kind of push this idea because there are people, like I said, who are refusing to leave the young adult genre. And it's like, adult fantasy exists, adult romance exists, all these things that people are obsessed with in young adult novels actually exist in adult novels as well, but it does require more work because a lot of adult novels are going to be your general fiction, right? It's going to be your general fiction or your romance. Why? Because those are the things that sell, and those are going to be the things that are most prominent, but that does not mean that other types of things do not exist. And you would be making more space for these books to exist if you would simply just pick them up and support them. But there's a reason why it's such a higher, I'll say, threshold, higher obstacle for a lot of adults who want to write older protagonists, who want to write more mature themes, and they're basically being pigeonholed and shoehorned into writing for a younger audience because that's what people want. And it's just like, y'all are weird. Y'all need to seek therapy. Y'all need to be okay with growing up and aging. Like, it's going to happen whether you're okay with it or not, unless you take alternative measures, and those are usually not very positive. So it's just kind of like, chill. It's okay. Let the kids have the thing that is for them. Like, I don't see any adult who's like, yeah, I want to go back to school. I want to freaking sit in Mrs. So and so's class. Like, you're not trying to do that. Why? Because it's for children. It's for children. School is for children. You no longer identify as that. And it's just like, you're trying to take the best of both worlds, and it's like, you really should just mind your business. I don't know. Like, move on. It's like graduating from high school and then showing up for class the next semester. That, why are you here? This is no longer for you. You have aged out. You have completed the curriculum. There is more out there for you. I promise. Let's see here. Star Dancer Supreme said, I had started to read books with only Black authors and characters. It's a shame that we can't just exist in this world. Okay, so let me say this. This is a slight rant, and it's something that I have always noticed, and it's part of the reason why I do what I do, but it's also still something that really frustrates me. It's this idea that people would like to support you. They would like to read diversely. They would like to do all the things. They want all of the things, right? All of the things. They want the diversity. They want the marginalized characters. They want the queer community, the Black community, the Asian community. They want the intersectionality. They want all of this, but then they don't actually support the thing. They don't actually read the books. They don't actually support the creators trying to promote those things. And it is absolutely wild to me, because I'm like, y'all say y'all want these things, but then you don't actually support them. And one of the things that kind of always makes it clear to me is just like, you know, I run the Melanin Library. I see the analytics. I see how people share things. I see how people talk about things. And it's just like, people only care as long as it is free and convenient. They do not care about the other people who exist outside of being popular. And that's clearly evident by all of the content that you can see just on YouTube. The books that get talked about are not the ones that have the things that most people are talking about. And if so, it's very tokenized. It's very like, we pick you to be the popular author and you to be the representation of this particular genre, this particular subset of people. And it's just kind of like, wow, who makes these rules? And it's just like, I mean, I understand that there's so many things that go into it, but it's just kind of like the things that people tout as being the best and magnificent. And, oh, I definitely read Black fantasy. I've read, and I don't even have to say the name, and I'm pretty sure all of you can imagine what book was just inserted into that sentence. And it's just kind of like, y'all don't actually want diversity. Y'all don't actually want to support these creators. But yeah, also Margaret dropped in. Hello, welcome, love. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for dropping in. I hope you have a great meeting. But yeah, it's interesting to see, because not a lot of people actually put their money where their mouth is. And I don't know. I'm just kind of like, if you're not actually going to stand by what you're saying, please stop talking. Please stop talking, because there are people who are willing to fill the need. There are people who are willing to do the thing, and you are basically having them out here looking crazy. It's like the people who start subscription services and bookstores and like, I want to support marginalized creators, but then people don't actually frequent those businesses. They don't actually support them. They don't actually follow through. And it's just kind of like, wow, that's crazy. You're telling me that you couldn't keep this book subscription that actually works with indie authors and marginalized authors and people who actually represent the communities that they're a part of. You can't actually support that subscription, but you can definitely keep your fake rate subscription. You can absolutely keep your book of the month subscription. Crazy. Wild. Wow. Also, Truth Hurts is here. Hello, love. Welcome. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoy the content. I'm so glad that you could make it with us here this morning. But yeah, I hope you're doing well. It's crazy. It's crazy. Let's see here. Adult is being taken over by these young, immature characters now, and it's making it harder for people to focus on actual adult stories to get published. I can see that. I can definitely see that, because like for me personally, I write new adult. Like I specifically write for that crossover age gap between, okay, you're not in school anymore, but you're not, I'll say, big adult. You're brand new, as follow me, new adult. right? Like you're very new to this adulting thing. You know, that is who I would like to write books for, specifically that 22, 23, I just got out of college. I no longer have to read for school, but I would like to get back into reading for fun. I used to enjoy reading fantasy, but I don't want to go back and read the same fantasy that I used to. I want something a little bit more mature. That is specifically the very niche target that I'm aiming for with my books, right? But there are also books that I know that I plan to write that are not crossover at all. That's part of the reason why when people say that We Are the Origin and We Are Dying Gods is young adult, I don't correct them, because it's just like, I tell people like, hey, it's for 17 and up. There are things in it where it's just like, I probably would not hand this to a 14-year-old and expect them to enjoy it. But it's also not like super adulty fantasy. It's not N.K. Jemisin fantasy, and that's okay. I feel like there's a demographic and a market who can enjoy both, or one or the other, or whatever, right? But I feel like, I know that for me personally, there are books that I have planned that are definitely for a more adult audience, where the protagonist is going to be older. And by older, I literally mean just like in their 30s. Like, I don't know who decided that 30s was an older protagonist, because that's so weird to me. Like, I don't know. Is there this widespread perception that you just croak and just like keel over and just stop living once you hit 40? Like, older protagonist at 30, that's crazy. That's crazy. But I also feel like that's why the entire section of indie publishing still needs to very much exist, because traditional publishing looks at those things and they're like, oh, that's not going to sell. And it's like, that's not true. I beg to differ. I beg to differ, because there are people who literally want these things. They just can't buy it because they don't know it exists. Like, that's literally the primary battle as an author. It's just getting people to know that your book exists and what is actually in it. But yeah. Going back through some of the comments. Sorry, went on a rant. I'm not gonna apologize. That's what y'all come here for. Also, if you haven't already, go ahead and tap the like button. Let's see here. Relive Listen said, so true, folks and our followers and lazy. Yeah. I get tired of the clones. So many readers want to be told what to read instead of experiencing and finding their own style or new authors. Let me tell you something. I have come to understand that it's not even about being able to find the books. It is about someone telling you to read the book. So many people, I'm gonna say this, and it may or may not ruffle some feathers, but I'm going to say it anyway, right? A lot of people lack any semblance of critical thinking. They literally lack the ability to think for themselves. And I think a lot more of those people are getting into reading, and therefore it is less about, is the book actually good? Is this book actually doing something worth doing? Should this book have even been published in the first place? It is less about that and more so about, someone told me that this was good and I need to be on the bandwagon. I need to ride the hype train. I feel like there is a large subsect of people who are now readers, and I put that in air quotes because, again, they lack critical thinking, but they are now readers, and they just need to be in the in crowd. They never actually left high school, which is why they're obsessed with young adult, because they're mentally still stuck in high school and the social dynamics that come with that, and they are trying to carry that over into their adult lives. They need a way to feel popular and included to the point of exclusion to other people. And it's honestly like, yeah, I don't know. Even in high school, I was like, oh, y'all are dumb. Like, y'all really, this is it for you. Like, being prom queen is it for you. Like, it really is all downhill from here. And I hate that for you, but it's also like, man, you probably shouldn't be in this community as loud as you are. You probably shouldn't be. Like, it's cool if you're followers. Book careers are made off of people being followers. That is a reality. There's nothing wrong with that. However, if you know that you're just reading this book because Susie McSue on such and such channel told you to read the book, and you bought it and you enjoyed it, even though you didn't understand anything that happened in it because Susie McSue said it was a 5-star read for her, then maybe, just maybe, hear me out. You should not be on the internet telling people how great and amazing it is when you don't actually have an opinion of your own. And it's just kind of like, it's okay if your opinion differs from somebody else's. It is okay if you like a book and your friend doesn't. Because honestly, the people that I keep in my personal like circle around me, 9 times out of 10, I have a lot of people who are like, Chelsea, I think you would like this book. And I'm like, we will see. And then I get into it. Sometimes they're accurate and I'm like, yeah, I really enjoyed this. But then other times I'm like, you know what, I don't know, man, I'm glad that you loved it. It wasn't for me. I'm not going to get into it, and that's fine. That's why we have brains. That's why we are not all interconnected and hooked up to the same beehive machine to give us all the exact same thought. It's okay to look at things and read things, but I also feel like there's a growing subsect of people who don't appreciate actual storytelling, because I feel like the quality of stories is not actually improving over time. I feel like it's getting oversimplified because people lack the ability to actually read a story and understand that there are subtleties to it, that characters are complex, that the author this is not a one-man show. That it's not the author putting on all of the hats and doing all the things and saying the things themselves and supporting all of the ideas that go into a book. It is literally just what if it's an exploration. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand that the author themselves can be removed from the content in certain ways to discuss it. It's just, it's really weird. It's really weird. And I'm like, if you, I don't want to say you shouldn't read books. I don't think we should be gatekeeping books, but I'm also like, if you don't understand that the author is not in fact the character that you are reading about, maybe you shouldn't be reading books. Maybe we should go back and think about why we read books and what books are for. Like maybe we need a bit more base level of understanding before we start jumping into high fantasy and thinking that we can critique it. You know, I was listening to Finding Me by Viola Davis, her audiobook, and she was talking about how there was a time in acting where it was the critics, right? It was she said specifically that it was a time before everyone with a platform could have a very loud opinion, essentially. And I'm just like, you know, I kind of wish that there was a little bit more gatekeeping to books. I wish there was a little bit more of, is the book actually good? Is the storytelling good? Is the craft good? Because I feel like there is a certain level, especially when it comes to awards and things, that needs to be a factor into it. It's not just, oh, did this one person who has, 250,000 subscribers or 250,000 followers like or dislike the book, I don't know. Okay, scrolling back up to the comments, Jamin, this is why the book community is insufferable. There's a reason why I like to be very clear that I am an author in this community and not a book reader. Because like even on the Melanin Library, I made it very clear in the trailer, like, hey, I only read so many books a year. And you know what? I think I've told you guys this before. It's not that I'm not over here reading books, it's that I'm not over here finishing books. It's that I'm not over here talking about books. Because even here's the thing. The books that especially if you know me, especially if you're in the Discord and you actually know me, I will say the books that I say that I think are overhyped and talked about way too much and held at this pinnacle of everybody should read it. This is the representation for this particular genre written by this particular marginalized community. I actually own those books. I have actually given them a try, and I'm just like, oh, this is your king. This is your king. Like, that's just kind of how I feel, but I think that's okay. That's fine. If it is, it's just, it's not me. It's not me. The books that I actually enjoy are usually the ones that are actually well written. I'll just leave it at that. Let's see here. Took nearly a month to get 3 books, but it was worth it. Oh, love that. Let's see here. They don't want to form their own opinion. They want to be in on a conversation. Whew, that is a word. And I am really sick and tired of people who don't want to form their own opinion trying to be in a conversation with people who have formed their own opinions. Like, it's why I think it's honestly why a lot of book clubs fail, because people are like, oh, I want to read the book with you. I want to read the book with you. But they don't want to talk about the book with you. They don't want to have conversations about the book. And it's just like, I don't think people realize that books are meant to be conversation starters. You're meant to look at the ideas in a book and discuss them. And they are supposed to, in a lot of ways, be, I don't say preventative measures, but they're supposed to help you think critically about the world around you in the same way that like documentaries and things are. Like, it's just presented, the ideas are presented to you in a different way. But it's still supposed to make you think, and it's still supposed to, your synapses are supposed to be firing up here while you're reading, and it's supposed to encourage discussion. It's supposed to get you thinking. But the thing about books is that you have to experience it on your own. It's not a thing for the most part. There are definitely exceptions, but for the most part, it's not something that you are experiencing in real time with other people, like with books and not books, with movies and TV and music. Like, you can listen to an album together with other people. You can watch TV and a movie together with other people, and basically your ideas are going to form in real time with theirs as you have that conversation. With a book, you read that in isolation. You think about that and you form your own thoughts before you ever have a chance to communicate that to someone else, because in order to have the most effective conversation, they also have to have read the book. And that takes time. It takes commitment. And in a world where everything is like super fast, people aren't making the commitment necessary to really have in-depth conversations about books the way that they probably should be. I don't know. I'm not gonna say should. Should is a strong word. The way that they probably could be, I will say. But I think that's also a major change that's happening just in the world in real time. Like, I find so much of what's happening in the world to be interesting, because it's just like, there are people who really cannot think for themselves. They just truly, genuinely cannot. And I'm just like, well, what's the point of reading a book? Homie, I don't know. I feel like we've lost the plot somewhere. But yeah, I try so hard not to call people dumb on Twitter, but they truly don't have the brains needed to have a decent conversation with me about books and basically anything. I will say this: Twitter is not the place to try to have a conversation. It's not, because people there are two things that came to my mind just now. One was the fact that a lot of people lack nuance, and like I said, they lack reading comprehension. And someone pointed out on Twitter that reading comprehension, part of that, what's included in that, is the fact that you should be able to determine who the target audience of something written is, right? It's like, that is part of reading comprehension. One, a lot of people don't know how to do that. They don't know how to look at something and be like, it's not about me. That literally, they don't know how to do that. So Twitter is not a great place to try to have a conversation, because a lot of people are in fact dumb. I will say it for you. A lot of people on the internet who have a very loud opinions are not thinking critically. I'm not gonna call them stupid. I will say that they are ignorant and loud. I will say that. They don't care to educate themselves. And they don't care to, how do I say this? They don't care to actually have a discussion. They just want to be right. They want to have an opinion. And they're like, well, this is my opinion. And then they'll state a fact. And it's just like, nope, that is just an incorrect fact that you were pushing. But yeah. But it's also, the other thing that was on my mind is completely unrelated, but something that I was saying earlier is people talk about how like Octavia Butler was like seeing the future or whatever. And then I read a post that was basically like, no, she wasn't seeing the future. She was exaggerating something that was happening in real time or whatever, right? That's generally what science fiction is, right? They're exaggerating things and issues that are happening in real time, right? And so it feels like they're predicting the future when we're there, right? But it's like these things could have been prevented had people just had in-depth conversations about them and the implications behind it, right? Because people want to be like, oh, we're living through the Hunger Games, and it's just like, okay, well, it's interesting that you think we're living through the Hunger Games, and so many people think that they would have been Katniss, that they would have been defying the regime, and it's like, but no, you're not. You're just that person standing in the crowd who's really glad that their name wasn't called, that their family's name wasn't called, that they weren't actually called to action, and you're more than happy to look away as somebody else sacrifices themselves for something that's important to them. But, go off. We are all rebels, right? Like, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like so many people are like, I definitely would not have denied Jesus. Like, can you imagine Jesus knocking on your door and you turning him away? And it's like, you guys do that all the time, though. You will look a homeless person in the face and be like, no, don't talk to me. Don't look at me. Don't engage. Like, I don't know. Does that feel very rebel behavior for you? Because it feels very much mainstream. But I feel like a lot of people are not ready to have that conversation. Going back to the comments, definitely some people are stuck in high school. Some people never leave. Some people probably should have never been there, to be honest. But, it is what it is. Let's see here. Your brain is braining, and you're absolutely correct. Everyone's a follower. Yeah. Also, Timothy is here. Hello, welcome. I hope you're great. I hope you're wonderful. I hope you're thriving. But there was a question. Okay. I think Joanne or JK put it in the chat. It says, question for you guys. What age do you think qualifies as new adult? I do want to touch on this, but because I was late, we are going to go a little bit over. But I do want to let you guys know that after this is the after chat, which is in the Discord server. So if you want to join, sign up for the Patreon. $5 gets you in. And basically, it's this conversation, but just a little less unfiltered. And you also get access to the conversations that we have, even though the Melanin Chat only happens every other week. So definitely worth joining. It also supports the channel and the Melanin Library. So get into it. There's a link down in the description box below, as well as on screen beneath the chat, patreon.com/written in melanin. There we go. But for me, new adult, I feel like this is something that kind of comes up every so often, but new adult is, to me, and I don't know if this is the actual, whatchamacallit, the actual definition of it, but new adult is literally what it says. It's people who are new adults. It's for like 17 to 30 is usually what I put, right? If you want, I have them actually broken down on the Melanin Library, but when it comes to books, I say 17, mostly because for a lot of people, that mental transition from childhood, teenagehood to adulthood doesn't actually happen at 18. It happens around 17, because that's when a lot of people start to graduate high school and they start to get to college and have a little bit of freedom, and they start figuring out how they fit into this world as an adult, right? Start trying to figure that out. I say the cutoff is 30 because usually your 20s are viewed as, you're literally a young adult, right? It's kind of like that equivalent of like when you're a kid, like you're a young kid how do I put it? How does somebody put it? Like when you're born, right? Like you're an infant, right? And then you become a toddler, and then you, from like the ages of 5 to 10, you're like you're a child. You're not a toddler anymore. Like you're a child, but you're a new child. You're still figuring out very child things, the rules and the boundaries and stuff, right? Adulting is like when you hit 18, you become adult. That's your first year of being an adult. Like you have nothing figured out. In your 20s is usually you figuring that out, right? And you have basically like a decade, for generally speaking, for most people to be like, okay, you need to get your footing, figure out how to do this adulting thing, because by 30, even if you aren't the adultiest adult, there are certain things in your life that people have expected society-wise for you to have figured out. So 17 to 30 is usually new adult range. That's how I think about it. I don't know if that's actually how it works, but Vina mentioned 30 is the high cutoff age, especially since the median age for adult book characters tends to be 25 to 26. But the reason I say 30 is for the same reason why I think people in their 20s still read, like early 20s, still read young adult, right? It's because like when you're new to it, it's like you still go back a little bit, right? So I feel like 30 is when you're like very solidly in a new, I'll say, life stage, right? 30 is also when a lot of people take on a lot bigger responsibilities, like having kids if they haven't already, or thinking about having kids, or buying a house, or, you know, your parents are getting older, and, you know, the reality and responsibilities that come with being an adult caregiver, et cetera, et cetera. Like your life stage changes around 30. And so that's another reason why I say new adult is still up until about 30, personally. But like Vina mentioned, a lot of characters tend to be around 25 or 26. So for adult, so I think there's also some crossover, because in my mind, new adult is 18 to 30, but adult is 25 and up. So there's definitely like this middle in between spot. But yeah. Also, Fred is here. Hello. Welcome, friend. I hope you're doing well. Let's see here. I feel bad that I stay away from a lot of author book news, so I typically have no idea what's going on. I just got on the Melanin Library site, look for new books, and buy them. You know, if everybody did that, it would be lovely. It would actually be really lovely. But yeah, the Melanin Library is interesting. It's interesting because it's always like, oh, I want to read books. I want to read diversely, until it's like, no. And it's like, yeah, that, like, it still requires work. It still requires work. Let's see here. To me, 18 is new adult, but I can be quite literal sometimes. Yeah, I mean, 18 is new adult, though. I just feel like new adult's a range. Let's see here. But I was born at a very young age. It's easier to justify bad choices if the characters are young, but I've met plenty of dumb millennials and Gen X. Yeah, I mean, okay. Here's what I'm going to say, and it's going to be controversial, and I don't know who I'm going to upset when I say this, but it is what it is, and this is how I feel, and it's my channel, so I can say what I want. Bad choices, if characters are making bad choices and it is blamed on them being young, that is bad writing. That's just what it is. Because that is predicated on the fact that there is literally no one else in the world who has ever made a singular mistake, it is basically, if you're basing it on them being young, that is just like saying, oh, Eve had to eat the apple because there was no one to tell her no. No, there's free choice, there's free will. The difference with Eve is like there was no consequences. Consequences had literally not been invented yet until she ate the apple. Okay, there's that. But if you are writing a story about a teenager who's like 13 or 14 and they are doing something stupid for the sake of doing stupid, why? Like, are you telling me they don't have friends? Are they telling me that there are no adults in their lives? Are you telling me that they're not on social media? Are you telling me that there's literally no one to speak to them? If they're making bad choices just to make bad choices because they're young, that's bad writing. A bad choice should have reasons behind them. And honestly, it's one of the reasons why I will DNF a book if I'm like, oh, this is happening because of the plot. This is happening because it needs to happen. I have dropped books so fast because of that, where it's just like, so you're telling me that this character is going to a party of someone who actively hates them, that their friends are telling them not to go to, but they're going to go anyway? There's no reason for this to happen. This is just happening because the plot dictates that they go to this party. So why would I read a book like that? Like the skill has already been demonstrated and it's not impressive. It's not impressive. But yeah, anyway, that's my two cents on the matter. Like I said, it is coming up on 10 minutes after the hour. So this is your reminder that if you haven't already, please tap the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you don't miss when I go live. I am not doing writing sprints at the moment, mostly because there are a lot of things that I have to work through with my book. And honestly, trying to write while being perceived is difficult. So, yeah. There's something else I was gonna say. Oh, videos are going to be, I'm going to try to keep posting them, but you know, it is what it is. I have to finish this book, you guys. And honestly, Project Necromancer has taken a back seat to a lot of things just for life-wise. And there are other things coming up. So yeah, I don't know what to, just subscribe to the channel so you don't miss things. That's it. That's it. And if you want to know specifically what's going on with me and all those things, there is a link to the Discord server where I send my updates and things. It's called the Book Hearts. So it's free. You can just click on it, get in, keep up with all the things that are going on. And yeah, also, if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe to the Melanin Library channel. If you are about Black books and Black authors, go ahead and get into it. All of my bookish content, the Melanin Awareness, book reviews, things of that nature are going to be over there on the Melanin Library channel. And this channel is going to be specifically for author things. Subscribe to it because the Melanin Chat is actually going to be migrating over to the Melanin Library channel after a while too. So yeah, get into it. Let's see here. Last couple comments before we head out. Read, Love, Listen said, I've never DNF so many books as I have this year. So many only want to fulfill tropes and smut. Facts. Absolute facts, bruh. Like, it upsets me. It upsets me. Let's see here. Thanks for the informative chat. You are welcome. Hopefully it's always fun. And there are dumb people at every age. I've met so many grown people who have the maturity of a toddler. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Also, JK and Truth Hurts. You guys feel free to do things. I'm pretty sure JK has a channel, so you can click on her link in the chat. So yeah. That being said, you guys. Oh, there she goes. I'm going to give you a second to grab that, and then we are heading out. So again, make sure that you are signed up for the after chat because that's where we're going to be. But that's it, you guys. Thanks so much for being here. And until next time, I hope your days are lovely and your books are interesting. Bye, you guys.